Good morning, FlossTube. It is Thursday the 8th of August and I'm back for my, a bit sooner this time, for my FlossTube number 6. I'm Caroline. I'm in West Yorkshire in the UK. I can be found around the internet on Twitter and Instagram. I have the same handle on both platforms, which is at Caroline A Kemp, and Caroline is spelled with a K. You can also find my blog, which will have the show notes for this episode. It's at Caroline's Corner, again Caroline with a K, .blogspot.com, and I'll put that all down below for you. Back to one of my regular episodes after the last one. This one, there'll be a bit of stitching, and I actually have a finish for you. Not fully finished yet, almost there. My whips, a new start, I have knitting and books. So first things first, my finish. I mentioned last time that I didn't have very far to go to finish the Rosie's Red Pincushion by Lauren Sauer of Forget Me Nots in Stitches, and I have now finished the stitching. Last time you saw it, I had just had the words to finish on Queen and the side band to do, which as you can see I've done. I'd finished the top. As you can see, I'm part way through doing the actual finishing because I just sort of rolled on with it to make sure it happened. So hopefully next time I record I will have a finished mattress pincushion. But I'm very happy to have got all the stitching finished, and of course this is one of my Stitch Line Challenge pieces. So it's all stitched in sampler threads, and this was a little kit that I picked up to class with Lauren that she designed for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. So very pleased to have that done. And now we're on to whips, because that's all. I don't get a lot of finishes, as I've said before. I've been on a bit of a roll recently, but hey. So the first whip I've been working on is Dorothy Walpole. It is beautiful sampler, as you know, and I'm onto the flowers. I'm stitching this on some 40 count Lakeside Linen Vintage Pearl Barley that I had in my stash from before children. That's how long it's been in my stash. So since you last saw it, I've been working on these flowers. So I finished that flower at the bottom. I'm almost done with this flower. I should get that done this time, and hopefully this little bit, so I will be done with that motif. I've done a little bit more work on the borders as well, because I'm trying to sort of do them as I go so that they don't become a big slog at the end. And there's Dorothy in her entirety so far. For those of you who are interested in Dorothy, there is a sale kicking off on another sale kicking off on Facebook. As I've said before, I started this one with a sale back in 2015. They're going to start work on her in February. So if you have a search, I know it's been mentioned in all the sampler groups on Facebook, and see what you can find. So very much enjoying getting a bit of time to work on them. I'm on school holidays on holiday from college at the moment, so I'm getting a bit more stitching time than I normally do. Normally I only get to stitch for 3 or 4 hours a week, and an equivalent amount of knitting time, because life. So with it being the holidays, I'm getting a lot more crafting time in. So the next whip I worked on was the Scottish Sampler from the Good Heart Samplers book. So can get far enough back. There we go. When you last saw it, I was working on these boxes. Let me just put Dorothy behind, and then you can along here. So I finished those boxes and I've made a start on the big black work row below, hoping I can crack on with this one. I'm starting to get a few different colours in as well, rather than just the peach and cream, green that have been that were all the alphabets. So, as I've mentioned before, this sampler can be found in the dust jacket. It's charted in the dust jacket of the Goodheart Samplers book from Needleprint. I'll show you the picture of the actual sampler. There we go. So I'm on this big blackwork motif down the bottom, and then I've not got too much further to go, so hopefully I should get that one done this year, all being well. I'm stitching this on I think it's lambswool linen, and I think it's needlepoint silks that we were given in the class. So here we are. I say I've mostly been stitching with this light peach and this green for most of the sampler, so it's nice to get some of the other colours in, like this red. Having finished the Roses Red Pincushion, it meant I picked one of my other smalls out of my Stitch 9. This is a little gift I was given by Jackie Duplessis of It's Finally Finished when I took a class with her a few years ago. Just a little scissor fob and thread fob. I've stitched the scissor fob and I'm now working on the thread fob. So I've got this flower done the other week when I had a couple of hours after I'd finished the pincushion. So looking forward to getting that one knocked out quite quickly. That's also one of my Stitch 9s. The other WIP that's seen some attention is Pomegranate Santa by Plum Street Samplers. Not a huge amount of progress since you last saw it, but what I have done is finish the deer at the bottom and all that snow. So I'm back to working on this flower. I just work on this one on a Sunday for Santa Sundays. So hopefully, now I slog through all that snow, it won't take too long to finish up. And that one is being stitched with the Call For Classic Colour Works Crescent colours, depending on what I had. And say, it was the dark red that really called for me on that particular piece. And I'm stitching that on a piece of 36 count vintage lights exemplar that I had in my stash. As I've mentioned before, although you've not seen many of them because I've not been recording very frequently, I'm starting a new piece on the 1st of every month, just so I can get some of the older charts and kits that I have in my stash out of the stash and into my rotation eventually. My start for August was the Drawn Thread Happy Halloween. I have a huge stash of Drawn Thread charts because she was my favourite designer, and I've kind of my tastes have changed a little bit, so I don't buy nearly as many of them as I used to. But when I first started stitching 20 years ago, it was the Drawn Thread that really caught my attention. So, stitching this on a piece of Country French linen, 28 count in the colourway Chocolate, using the Call For DMC and I've got the witch's hat done and a good chunk of the moon below. Liking the colours as well for this piece, especially the it's now Threadworks, but back then was Needle Necessities copper thread, which will be the alphabet when I get there. So looking forward to get that one. This one shouldn't take very long to stitch once it gets into my regular rotation. As soon as I finish some of the smaller pieces on my Stitch 9, I'll be getting back to some of these starts that I made. And I'm just going to share with you, I don't buy a lot of stash these days because I've got such a big one, but there are some people doing some fabulous reproduction samplers, which is more in my taste lie these days. So I have acquired this year a handful of sampler charts. First one was I got as one of my Mother's Day presents from my son. It was the Hands Across the Sea Elizabeth Weston chart. Love the pinks and green combination on this one. Looking forward to stitching that eventually, very eventually probably. And then I succumbed to Teresa at Kitten Stitcher's birthday sale. I don't buy a lot of stuff from the States anymore. I used to, but these days you do get really, with postage and custom charges, it's really not worth it. But I've been after Ann Dale since it came out, but at the time it came out I wasn't in a position to buy it. So with the birthday discount, it actually meant that it kind of covered the postage and shipping and customs, because the customs are a lot, I'm guessing because there's less post around, you get stung for customs every time now. So yes, it was, again, it's the reds and greens that appealed to me in Ann Dale, and so I wanted to, whether I actually get around to stitching her is another matter because she's a big girl, but we shall see. And as we know, no sampler can travel alone. I also bought her latest, Teresa's latest reproduction, Caroline Sayer, 1834. So they will go and marinate nicely in the stash for several years, a long time probably. Now on to knitting. I have a finish. I have two finishes in my knitting, one of which I can show you, one of which has been given away. First finish is my Polka Gris kerchief from Kate Davis. It's a pattern by Kate Davis. Actually finished knitting this back in May, but it had to wait a while before I got round to blocking it till I got on holiday to have the headspace to block it. Not that it needed a lot of blocking, but you know what I mean. I think I'm going to enjoy wearing this summer, because sometimes you just need something light to cover your neck, or you do in the UK anyway. We're having a much more typical UK summer this year. This was knit in Zilania Air. I bought this on my first trip to New Zealand to visit family. It's a mix of cashmere and possum. Possums are a pest in New Zealand because they eat all the native wildlife, so they have to they are regularly culled, and so the use, in order to make it more sustainable, they use the fur in their knitting yarn, and it does make for a lovely warm, light, warm yarn. The other knitting piece I finished was a baby knit. One of my colleagues at work went on maternity leave in April, and obviously I had to knit her something. I will put a picture of my finished piece in around here. See if that works. It's a little jacket. The pattern is a commercial pattern put out by John Lewis and Partners, and they're a big department store here in the UK. They are the only one, I think, that still has a haberdashery department. So it's from their Baby 2 book, and it's the hooded cardigan. It's kind of very cute. It's got these little teddy bear ears on it. I have to say the pattern was terrible. Our lovely indie designers who tech edit everything, that pattern had obviously never been tech edited because there was a glaring error in it. I need to email John Lewis and let them know. I knit it in the Knit Merino from John Lewis in the dark spruce colourway, and I did end up, because I had to rip back so much on that particular garment, and it took a lot longer to knit than I had planned, and I did end up working on it pretty much exclusively through March, and just squeaked in getting it finished for her baby shower that we did for her. But apparently it went down very well. So yes, so onto my knitting whips. The first one I'm going to show you is Hermione's Everyday Socks, which I'm on to sock 2. This is a pattern by Dreams in Fibre, and a free pattern on Ravelry. Here is sock 1. As you can see, I'm knitting this in some yarn from the Knitting Goddess, Joy. She's based in Harrogate, so not that far away from me. It's her British wool and nylon, and it's from a yarn club I was in back in 2006, which is called Back to the Discworld. This yarn colourway is Carborundum, who was a troll thinks. But as you can see, it's kind of slithering colourway. So some Hermione socks in the slithering colourway. On the second sock, I've got the body of the sock done, and I'm just starting the heel flap. This tends to only get knit when I'm out and about, so mostly it's swimming lessons with the kids. So should get those finished. We're going on holiday soon, and there'll probably be plenty of sort of travel knitting time, because it's a Oh, and obviously, having finished the Pulgaris kerchief, I had to cast on another shawl. So the shawl I went for was the Amulet shawl from the first season of the Curious Handmade Shawl Society. This is the second shawl in that season's society. I am knitting it in some Ripples Crafts yarn in her Sullivan yarn base, which is 60% wool, 20% silk, 20% yak, and is beautifully soft. So here we go. It's a two-colour. You can knit it as a two-colour shawl or a single-colour shawl. I'm doing it as a two-colour shawl. This dark one is That'll Be the Coal, and this one is Heather. Stitches are coming from here, and I am about halfway through the shawl. I finished the top garter band, and I'm about to finish this eyelet band. Then there's another band of black, and then the lace border back in the heather. As always with Helen shawls, it's an absolute dream to knit. Although I have to say I did end up frogging it and starting over again, because when I started it we were away and the light wasn't great, and this dark wool, you do actually need decent light. So that's my amulet shawl. Which just leaves my Scole cardigan, which I'm getting quite close to finishing. On this, I pick it up at the end of the yoke on this, so I just have the neckband, the button bands to go. Tried it on the other day, it does fit rather well. However, I'm playing yarn chicken. I do have another ball of this wool. I ordered it from Blacker, because this is a Blacker Yarns Lioness that I'm knitting it in the double knit in the hematite colourway. It's a slightly different shade, obviously, because I did buy this yarn a couple of years ago. So I'm just going to use the new shade for the button bands. I think I have enough to finish the neckband, so I shall just do the button bands in the new yarn, which is slightly bluer than this one. And hopefully, because obviously the button bands, with them going in a different direction, the light is going to hit it differently anyway, so it will be a lot less. The difference in colour shouldn't be quite as marked. Now there has been a little bit of yarn acquisition as well, because we had a couple of yarn festivals locally, one in April and one in May, beginning of June. The one in April is called Spring into Wool in Leeds, and my daughter and I, because my daughter's a bit of a yarn addict as well, we went there, and I picked up 2 skeins of yarn from Ducky Darlings, who dies in Derbyshire. This is a mix of merino and nylon, and I got these yarns to mix with one that I already had in my stash, which is a Eden Cottage Yarns, from Eden Cottage Yarns, get the label the right way up. It's in the colourway Purple Rain, and I'm going to mix those together to make, I think it's the Learning to Cry shawl from season 3 of the Shawl Society. So that's what those have been earmarked for. And then at the beginning of June we have the Leeds Wool Festival, which is held at Army Mills, which is in the Leeds Industrial Museum, which is an old 17th century wool mill. And there I got 2 skeins of Giddy yarns in the High Tide colourway. I was originally going to do the first shawl in the Shawl Society, whose name escapes me, so I will put it down below. But now I'm going to do the floating shawl. I think it's floating, the second shawl. Again, if I've got that name wrong, I'll put it below, because I just think the colour way is just right for it. Also, while I was at the Leeds Wool Festival, I bought this little notions pouch from Little Grey Girl, all full of all sorts of useful little bits and pieces. There's a tape measure and some folding scissors and a pencil and highlighter and needle minder and progress keeper that I can keep in my projects. So I think this is going to be the next shawl. The floating shawl is definitely going to be the next one that gets cast on once I've finished my amulet shawl. Which hopefully, because I'm about halfway, I'm almost at the 50% point, won't be too long now. Right, I'm just going to mention a couple of books. Obviously I've been reading a fair bit while I've been away, but there's just a couple of books I want to highlight that I've found particularly interesting or particularly interesting. First one is by Daphne du Maurier. I do enjoy going back to Daphne du Maurier's writings, having read her a lot as a teenager. I'm going back and I'm getting and actually enjoying the books a lot more than I did when I was a teenager. This is her second novel. It's called I'll Never Be Young Again, and it's about Richard, who is saved from suicide by a passing stranger called Jake, and about their adventures. And then Richard knocks up in Paris, Bohemian Paris in the 1920s, and he's trying to be a writer, and he meets, I think she's called Hester. I will give you a warning that there was at least one scene in here I found a little bit triggering, so treat with caution. However, Daphne knows what she's doing, so recommended. The other books I've been reading for my book club, we read the first three in the Anne of Green Gables. Love Anne. Love Anne. I probably found her a little annoying if I'd actually had to hang around with Anne, but they're never shutting up, because my son never shuts up, and believe me, it can drive me up the wall sometimes. And as I get older, I get more and more sympathy for Marilla. But yes, and Matthew, that always makes me cry still, the end. So we read Anne of Green Gables, read Anne of Avonlea, and we read Anne of the Island for our book club, which was some nice light reading. It's not a usual thing for book club. Normally they're a bit heavier. The next meeting, it's Philip K. Dick, Man in the High Tower, and after that we're doing Margaret Atwood, The Testaments. So nice to have a bit of light relief. Right, I think I'm done. I will see about getting this uploaded before the end of August. I'm planning on just keeping going, doing what I'm doing, really, family and work permitting. So hopefully I will be back at the beginning of September to record a new episode, and I will get that up before that month is out. So I hope you all enjoy the last of the summer. I know in the States you've all just seems like you've all gone back to school. We've got another 3 weeks yet. Yay. So I shall see you then. Bye.